when I was 28, after working a corporate job and working on my YouTube channel, I had fallen into some unhealthy habits, drinking beer multiple times a week. COVID happened in that era, the gyms were closed. I'd put on a lot of weight, and I sort of felt as if my glory years, my sunshine years had passed me by. I was now an older guy. I'd noticed I'd started having more aches and pains, had higher body fat. I wasn't as youthful or glowing as I once was. And I sort of accepted that identity. I thought, okay, I'm in my director years now. I'm a little bit older. I'm a little heavier set, but this season of my life and moving forward, it's more about the things I make, the films I work on and whatnot. I was making a good salary, but I associated myself more so with my filmmaking pursuits and not so much like the freshness with which I carried my body. But then I rediscovered running again, like so many during the pandemic and afterwards, especially around the summer of 2022 after going up through a powerlifting phase. I found running again in no small part due to Nick Bear, and I'd signed up for my first marathon that summer. Since then, logging easy miles and running into a zone 2 type heart rate has been a very consistent part of my life. But one day, I shaved my beard, because I'd always kept a beard after I was around 28 years old. And I looked at myself, and I suddenly was looking young once again. I was looking fresh-faced. I looked like I went from age 28 to 25 in that season of my life. And I think in large part, it's because of running. I went through the same transformation that I had from middle school to high school, except this time transitioning from my 20s to my 30s. And that was all due to running. Running has had a profound impact on my psychology, on my life, on the sense of clarity and momentum, and even the amount of hope I carry with me for the years and the decades coming forward, because I know so long as I'm able to run and I'm able to be a runner, I will be a young man for decades to come, because running has kept me young. And so in this video, I want to talk about some very, very major benefits that I've discovered through running, that running has given me, and why I fell into this sport in the first place. So the first idea I want to talk about is that running generates momentum in your life, especially if you can cultivate the habit of doing cardio first thing in the morning. That alone will change your life. A lot of people, they struggle with action or the idea of taking action. In fact, in season 4 of Peaky Blinders, there's a scene where Thomas Shelby, the main character, he's recommended to take a vacation, and he spirals out of control so badly during that vacation. He's just at his estate trying to play golf but not really into it, that at one point he's drinking whiskey by himself, and he says to his maid, he says, "I know what this is. This is just me having a conversation with myself about myself." And when you don't take action, when you don't kick things off with life, with your day, it is so hard to not overthink. It's really hard to feel kind of fresh and action-oriented about your life if you don't begin each day with momentum. And I think a large part of this is because the specter of death looms closer and closer. You know, even though I'm only 31, we don't really acknowledge this enough. We think about it all the time. I think about death with some frequency. Sometimes I'm laying in bed and I wonder what it might be like to be an old man, because it's not that far away. And so you can very quickly get stuck in ideas and thinking. You even can get stuck thinking about how you should step out of the door, like walk outside of the door and begin the day. I need to begin the day, I can begin life. But too many people get caught in the planning of starting to live. And a large part of it, I think, is because the specter of death is there. It sort of like immobilizes them. More than that, a lot of times our people are driven so much by achievement. I work with a lot of people who are very ambitious, very high achievement minded, and they, in some regards, do the least of what they should do. Like, what is before them, the action before them is so obvious. It's like they should do this thing, but they don't, because they instead want to talk about doing the thing. It goes with so many things. I work with a lot of people who want to grow a YouTube channel, and they talk about, all right, after I work on this video, what should the next video be? A friend of mine, he does this all the time. He would know if he watches this video that I'm talking about him. But he'll say, okay, yeah, once I make this video, what should the next video be? There's almost like a reluctance to accept only that next thing. I just say, dude, just make the next video. Like, you already have a video before you. run that. In the context of marathon training, sometimes people wonder, okay, once I run 3:10 on this block, I wonder what my next block is going to be. When in fact, the goal that is before you is already so significant and important. It's like, why don't you just do this one thing? Running creates a sense of momentum. If you become a runner and if you learn to cultivate like the habit and the art of running without thinking too much, like these days, I'm really in the thick of a block. I do like 60, 70 miles a week right now. There's not that much time in the day to think. I have so many other things I need to do. There's so much more I need to achieve that I just get up and I get out the door. I start pretty much every single run by 8 a.m. or even earlier because I have to be done by 10 a.m. so I can start working. And so you carry this sentiment throughout so much of your life where you find yourself thinking less before taking the action. And that's an etheric quality, but it's that willingness to step out of the door. It's the willingness to do the thing without thinking about doing the thing. And if you can cultivate that habit and carry it with you in so many different aspects of your life, it has a profound impact. Now, there is actually a biophysiological relationship with this, and that brings me to the next idea of the video. Zone 2 cardio and training triggers the production of BDNF. I've talked about this many times in my main channel, but it is worth saying. BDNF is a factor, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It was first really accounted for and talked about by John Rady in his book Spark, all about how exercise benefits the brain. Really, one of the most profound benefits of exercise is that it creates more dendritic connections in the brain. That's why after cardio, you just feel sharper. Now, there is a cap to this, so you need to do at least 20 minutes of zone 2 cardio, where your heart rate, for me, it's between 135 and 155 beats per minute. Maybe not exceeding that for over 50 minutes in length, because at that point, your cortisol begins to rise, actually, so it generates some stress hormone. But if you cultivate the habit of just getting to like a relaxed zone 2 style training on a regular basis, you are actually fueling your brain. You are actually making your brain smarter and sharper. And you only need to do this a couple of times to feel the benefits. If you feel sluggish, if you feel like, lack of clarity in thinking, if you're not able to speak well, if you were to just run for 20 minutes, it's around 20 to 22 minutes, and come back and get fresh, that alone, you would realize how much sharper you are, how you can sort of shrug off fatigue. Casey Neistat had once made a video about how he believes you can substitute exercise for sleep. So if you haven't slept and instead you carve out 2 hours of exercise, then in his experience, he feels it's the same. It's certainly not. Like, there's no replacement for sleep. But running has that effect of making you alert, making you fresh. And the cascading benefits of that, like the cascading downstream consequences of that, are so severe that I'll notice on a day where I start the run at 8 a.m., I get so much more done that day. It's the combination of that psychological effect of knowing that I just started my day without thinking about my day. And secondly, the fact that I actually genuinely have more like synapses firing that day. Which brings me to the third idea, the third benefit of running. It actually cultivates habits that make you leaner. Now, running by itself really should not have an effect on body composition, because it both burns calories but also is catabolic overall in your body in general. So you burn both muscle and fat after a period of running. That's why a lot of runners are really thin, but perhaps not super muscular. And even for myself, I notice I strength train about 4 to 5 days a week on top of my running. But if I'm really in the thick of a running season, then my body composition tends to stay about the same. It's really hard for me to drop below 13% body fat on an in-body scan if I'm running super high volume like I am right now. But it definitely gives you the habits to get lean. And so if you're ever in an off season, because of running and because of the trigger I can pull with how much cardio I'm able to do without fatiguing, if you wanted to drop a bunch of body fat really quickly, if I ever wanted to go through a solid cutting cycle, I could drop 4 pounds of fat in a month very effortlessly without feeling hungry because of my relationship with cardio. It's just because you get your steps up. You learn to get your steps up. And if you're coming from a background where you're not training a lot or you don't have a lot of a cardio-based background, then you will certainly find your body composition training right off rip, because Unlike a casual runner or someone who like, just does like 20 minutes of walking or something like that, if you become a runner, it's not unusual for a marathon runner or even a half marathon runner to go out and do 6, 7 miles or even up to 10 miles and see it as like an effort, see it as like an event. Like this morning, I had to do 10 miles easy. It was not something on the checklist. It was like before the checklist is the 10 miles easy because I'm regularly able to do it. An actor that I really like, he actually went to the same college as me. His name is Zach McGowan. He's not a huge star, but he's been in some really acclaimed shows like Black Sails, where he plays this pirate Charles Vance. He's damn shredded. Like, I don't know if he's on TRT, but he's been shredded his entire Hollywood career. And he starts every day with a 10-mile run. He tries to get a 10-mile run done before 9 a.m. The dude is 44, still so freaking shredded. And he does it at a sort of lackadaisical pace, so he's not always in zone 2. It seems like his heart rate is a little bit lower at times, so he's more like jogging, he's running, and he'll take breaks to do push-ups and pull-ups. He'll do like pull-ups against tree branches and stuff. He's really into like primal training. And the fact that he gets so many, that's 20,000 steps right before 9 a.m. I would challenge anyone to get 20,000 steps in a day and not start to get leaner. So if you have any ambitions for body composition, or even to know that you can generate the habits to get your body composition super sharp, running is one of those sports where you don't even need to be crazy clean with your diet, and you can still maintain like a athletic, low body fat, slim physique, or you can get to that place. Like with running, if I'm in my high volume weeks like I am now, I could literally eat pizza, eat ice cream, drink beer, and I'll still get leaner. I'm currently like 164.6 pounds. Normally, I like to sit around 170 to maybe have a little bit more muscle mass on me, but I'm still super lean. I'm slim, I'm thin, I look thin in the face. You can maintain your youthfulness and your like slimness far longer if you become a runner. It's like you can indulge, you can go to Christmas. Unlike the bodybuilders who have to be quite strict if they want to like have their body composition looking right, they actually find that like leanness through like calorie restriction. Maybe they do intermittent fasting or something like that. I don't really have to be too restrictive. In this season, I could eat up to 4,000 calories in a day and hit maintenance. That's just because I run such high volume. So it's kind of fun. It gives you the ability to enjoy food, like really enjoy food, not gain a bunch of weight. Because you're a runner, you run such high volume that like you can carry that with you. And then if you ever wanted to transition maybe into a more bodybuilding phase, maybe you're walking more, you still have cultivated that habit of getting out the door, of moving, of getting a bunch of steps every day. And that's something you can carry with you all your life. This brings me to the next idea of the video. Running is actually indirectly anabolic. For anyone who doesn't know like this gym jargon, anabolic means you're in a muscle building stasis in your body, a muscle building environment, and catabolic means that you're eating up your muscle. Running on the surface level, it is catabolic. If you run high volume, you'll lose muscle. That's why a lot of runners are thin, and runners who don't have a history of like strength training really aggressively first, they're slim guys, right? We're like the skinny guys. But it has a lot of indirect benefits for benefiting your hormones that are actually way more important for body composition. For instance, a lot of people struggle with insomnia. I know I do. Especially in the winter, I find it hard to sleep at night. One of the most profound ways to cure insomnia is to run when the sun is out. And what do you think is more important when it comes to being healthy, muscle mass, great body composition, and in general, like volume of running or getting your sleep super dialed? I mean, you can get calories really dialed, you could be hitting the gym, but if sleep is not good, it's really hard to stay on track with your diet. It's hard to be productive. It's hard to get anything done if you can't sleep well. And this is something that people don't talk about, or people who are really highly fitnessed who don't have a problem with insomnia. People don't talk about this as much, but like movement and movement in the sun, especially if you're outdoors, it like helps you understand your circadian clock. So for me, if I start my run at 8 a.m. like I do most days, there's a very, very reliable chance that I'll be able to sleep easily and effortlessly by 10 or 11 p.m. And more than that, spending an hour in the sun, helps you generate vitamin D. Vitamin D is it's unbelievably important from like testosterone production perspectives, or even just like warding off depression, just increasing your metabolism. So even though the surface level consequences of running are that it's catabolic on paper, it's second order consequences when it comes to like sleep, when it comes to vitamin D production, just overall health is so powerful. So if you actually want to be like a bodybuilder and you think, running is just for a bunch of skinny guys, I would challenge you on that. Like spending some time, like 50 to 60 minutes a day outdoors. And of course you could argue like walking is superior to running, but just a little bit of movement every day where you're outside, you're logging those runs, it will have such insane second order consequences. Now one could argue maybe walking would give you similar benefits in terms of sleep and vitamin D as opposed to running. But there are other benefits on top of that I would say makes running even more worthwhile, and I want to get to those next. So the next idea, zone 2 and its benefits for longevity. Longevity is far more important than aesthetics, really, at the end of the day, because we're going to be old and older people a lot longer than we're going to be, I don't know, young bodybuilders or whatnot. And so on top of my immediate goals with fitness and diet and nutrition, I also want to think about what would be good for me in my 50s, 60s, 70s. I want to stay a young man at 70. A lot of these killers of men as we get older, which is diabetes, stroke, cancer, and heart disease, so much of these conditions can be alleviated by running. It really has insane anti-aging properties. A great book and a great reference when it comes to the benefits of zone 2 training is by Peter Attia. It's called Outlive. But a number of scientists and neuroscientists have talked about how running has enormous benefits for just heart health and overall longevity. So from a longevity perspective in general, you would be well advised to incorporate a bit of running or some kind of run training into your life. Talking specifically about marathon training, another benefit of running is that it creates achievable milestones that help you remember your life. As you get older, life begins to speed up. This is largely due to the fact that there is not the same level of seasonality in our life. In high school, you could break things down by the trimester or the semester you were in, or even in college. And so you could see like, okay, I'm in the winter season. For me, so much of my memories that were forming around high school and what gave the year cadence was the fact that I would do fall plays and spring musicals and fall plays. I would do a lot of theater. So my life was really broken down by the next show I was doing. And a lot of us had this in our high school days and our college days. Oh, winter, that's basketball season. Spring, that's baseball season or whatnot. Fall, that's cross country season. We always had these milestones to base our life around. But as you get older, if you work a corporate job or if you're just out there working, that seasonality begins to go away. And it's so important to maintain, cultivate, keep seasonality in your life. More than on top of running, it's important to do the things that are related to the season you're in. Like right now in Minnesota, the state fair is going on. Like for its duration, Minnesota State Fair is the most attended state fair in America. It's one of the best state fairs. I think the only one that's more attended is Texas. But it's important to do the things that create seasonality in the environment you're in, because that's actually what gives your life a sense of cadence, a sense of milestone. And one of the beautiful things about marathoning, and I'm sort of glad people are getting into racing more, is that it creates such an intense seasonality in your life. You're working towards this next thing. And you can periodize your life so that it makes sense for this next block. Like for me, all roads are leading to Twin Cities, which is 4.5 weeks away now. Around October, November, a new season of my life will start, but I call it the red season. July through October, I'm in the red season right now. And effectively that means that the seasonality of your life continues. You can actually live longer, not just in terms of time duration and longevity, but also memory, like your understanding of the world, your understanding of your life. This sounds a little bit etheric to label this as a benefit, but if you're living every single day, day in and day out, the same day, that's like just killing you. That leads to depression, a sense of meaninglessness. And instead, if you give yourself these little milestones to work towards specifically for yourself, and you generate those for yourself, suddenly every single season of your life becomes this grand adventure. I'll tell you, in the last season, in the last 1 year of my life, there have been a lot of trials and tribulations just because my kind of YouTube team had fallen apart. There was a loss of friends in the last year of my life, which was very stressful. But I can still look back on this last year and see incredible seasonality because I was working towards the next race and every block had its own benefits. So when I was training for Arizona and working towards that February marathon, that winter block, it was all roads were leading to that. Then Arizona to Duluth, the June marathon at Grandma's, that was a spring block. I can just pare down like, oh yeah, that was that season of my life. This is what I'm working towards. That sense of milestone, that sense of seasonality is so freaking powerful. The next benefit, the next advantage of running is absolutely huge and has changed my life forever. It cures winter depression. Running can cure your winter depression. Now, to be fair, to take advantage of this benefit, you need to become a winter runner. You need to be acclimated and okay with running in the cold. But here's one thing that I learned that was unbelievably game-changing. It is possible to run in the cold. It's possible to run in the cold. It's possible to run in the dark. You can be outside when it's cold and you can get your run in. I wear long johns now, which are like these old school type, like leggings underneath your pant and thermals. And then I wear like a ski mask or some kind of like complete face covering. So I look like Dune, but like the ice version, I look like Ice Dune in the winter. I'm completely covered up except for my eyes. And even my eyes, sometimes I've ran in negative 10 degree weather, even my eyes, I'm like covering them up. But once you get started, once you get into it, especially if you were running at like 6 or 7 p.m. at night and it's like already dark outside, or it's like the handful of hours in the winter where the sun is out and you're just out there like feeling that sun on you, it's such a cheat code. Now, on average, Americans gain like 10% weight every winter. They just put on a little bit of body fat every winter and they keep it, and they kind of keep it for the rest of their life. That's like the truth of the typical American, especially like the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, and even beyond. Winters in Minnesota, they run from like December through March. So that season, that winter season, it runs for a really long time. And if you're just always bundled up, always indoors, that's like 5 months out of the year. If you live in the Midwest anyway, that's 5 months out of the year where you're like not enjoying the outdoors. If you become a runner, especially if you become a winter runner, one, running is so freaking good for your mental health. All that movement, it's like impossible to move that much and stay totally depressed. Like it's impossible. It's really, really hard. If you run enough, it's hard to be at a negative mental state. And that's why runner's high is such a sought after feeling, that sense of endorphin. But if you become a runner consistently, if you can get yourself to train through winter blocks, it almost like gives you an extra 5 months out of the year. I used to hate winter and the lack of sun. I would argue one of my favorite days in 2024 so far is a 20-mile run that I did during a snowstorm. I was listening to the Frozen soundtrack, both Frozen Heart, where the ice pickers in the beginning are like chopping ice, and also, of course, Let It Go. Bro, I was listening to the entire Frozen soundtrack. It was a delightful day. That run, because it was snowing so hard, my average pace was still like in like 9:20 per mile or whatever. It took me like over 3 hours to do that run, but it was so much fun. It was so delightful. You get to spend time in nature. You get to really enjoy yourself, and you can eat. You can eat for Christmas and you'll still like be healthy. You'll not put on a bunch of weight. So just on that front, just from that benefit alone, running has given me back so much life. It has been so incredibly beneficial. And so there is one last bonus benefit that I want to give in this video. It is running a little bit long, but running fosters a sense of wonder from nature. Nature is incredibly powerful. There's even a book called Your Brain on Nature, or Nature's Effect on the Brain, that I'd read a long time ago. And it basically talked about how spending time in nature is so healing. If you have any kind of anxiety or anything like that, especially if you can be around streams of water or whatnot, time in nature has incredible soothing effects. It also helps you tap into your subconscious and superconscious mind. And yet, in modern life, so many people, we make our money working indoors, maybe sitting a bunch. It's really an uninspired environment. And the mind cannot generate new ideas to achieve more and to do more and whatnot from an uninspired environment. So things become very dull and just dead. But if you spend a lot of time in nature, and I think the magic number for me that I try to get in every day, even though it is time consuming, is 50 minutes a day. Spending 50 minutes a day outside in the sun, ideally with the trees and the creeks and the rivers and nature all around. But even if you live in the city, in a park, spending time outdoors, spending time in nature has enormous healing benefits to the mind. And I would also argue spiritual benefits, where your intuition becomes stronger. Your overall sense of like clarity around what can be done and how to create that next quantum leap in your life, all of that becomes so much stronger when you spend time in nature. And if you become a runner, it gives you an opportunity to spend time in nature like that. Honestly, all endurance events help you become more connected to nature. And it is worth the time sacrifice. I would argue that it's something that would make you money. Like it would just sharpen so much inside you to cultivate that as a habit. So these are all the benefits of running. I have really, truly been solidly immersed in the world of running for about 2.5 years now. But I'm so thankful that I've found this new, almost like re-emergence, re-cadence to my life with training. I feel truly as if the same transition that happened from middle school to high school for me, where I got a new lease on life, where I went through a transformation, I found that once again as a runner, as a grown man. And genuinely, I think it's going to keep me younger for an extra 30 years. And so I'm really excited to progress and continue. If you're new here, my name is Nikhil. This is my second channel, all about working towards a sub 3:10 marathon at Twin Cities this fall. It's only about 4.5 weeks away. And so I've just been more or less making weekly videos, tracking my training volume and my journey getting to that race. But really this channel in general is helping you tap into your full potential through health and fitness and longevity. So if that's something that you're interested in, consider subscribing. If you want to work to grow your own YouTube channel, I also have a coaching program where I help other people basically speak authentically on camera and become really confident content creators. If that's something you're curious about, you can find the links to that in the description box and pinned comment. And lastly, if you want to connect with me further, you can find me on Instagram at nrajapandey. I'm now committing to 2 reels per week and just value-driven content where I just share my latest on training, filmmaking, behind the scenes on a film project that I'm working on, and more. So if you want to find me there, I'd love to see you. With that being said, for those of us who are willing to take on this ambition, take on this training, and take on the training of life, to us I say, greatness is coming. We'll catch you next time.